what's up everybody? My name is MELRAAH and welcome back to a new video. Today, I wanted to share with you some of my favorite effects plugins. See, I'm an avid sample user, splice user, looperman user, you name it, I use it. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves, and probably something you've run into as well with using samples, is being limited in the way I manipulate the sound. I can't twist knobs, modulate parameters the same way I would be able to with the serum preset, for example. Sure, you can
transpose,
stretch, reverse the sample, but all that only gets you so far. Having the plugins that I'm going to showcase today in your toolbox will open up a whole new world of possibilities. Now, I've prepared a couple of my own songs that I've already signed, songs that I've already released with labels, and songs that are signed but yet to be released, to give you a real-world example of how you can utilize these plugins in your own songs. Now, before we start, quick disclaimer, I'm not going to rattle off the user manual, explain the definition of every knob. A, because I don't know myself. B, because I think knowing what a knob does doesn't mean you know what it does, if you know what I mean. Oftentimes, you won't know how the effect will affect your sample and how that's going to sound. All right, let's jump right in and start with our first plugin. Number 1, Remnant. Probably the least known plugin of the bunch, but an absolute gem nonetheless. See, Remnant is an experimental grain delay that creates constantly varying patterns in time and space. We're immediately starting off with an unreleased song of mine called Where Are You Now? So I'll show you a little bit of the part where I used it, and then I'll go into detail of how I used it. So I had this drop already, and I wanted to give some variation in the second drop. I wanted to add a lead sound. Now, I heard this sample from Umru, which sounds like this. What piqued my interest was this one little sound. Just that little sound. The character of it, the way the metallic sound of it, it really, like I said, it piqued my interest. And I wanted that type of sound to be my lead. So I thought, all right, how am I going to go about trying to make this my lead? And I thought I can throw it in a sampler maybe, or try and pitch it around a bunch of times. But often what that does for me personally is it just sounds like a sample pitched around, and it sounds so robotic. And I wanted to give it a little bit more of an imperfect feel, a little bit of a human touch to it, because here I have the sample just pitched around, same melody. I mean, like I said, it just sounds so dorky to me. Put into play Remnant. And like I said, Remnant is an experimental grain delay. So you have two separate grains that work parallel from each other. But the cool thing about Remnant is they also feedback both into themselves, but also into each other, which creates a constant varying pattern. And that's exactly what I wanted. Now, you have a whole bunch of knobs, pitch, reverse, feedback, spread. I think that all kind of speaks for itself. The cool thing is they also have this freeze button, which I didn't use here, but that way it freezes the grain and just keeps on modulating that. And every time you turn it on or off again, it lets in a little piece of new information. Now, the frequency is what controls the grain size, and the spray adds randomness to the grain. Now, you have a whole bunch of presets to go through. One of my personal favorites is dark vocals, which I've used here. Now, let's have a listen to how that sounds. See, it creates different variations of the sound, but all with a slight different character to it, slight different timbre to it. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted every hit to sound just a little bit different, so it doesn't sound so robotic. So literally what I did, I just resampled it a bunch of times, dirtied up the sound like crazy, bunch of sausage fattener, camel crusher, saturator, decapitator, ending with a little bit of EQing because there's a lot of unwanted frequencies created by these plugins, and also a little bit of a harsh sound to the distortion. So just taming a couple of these harsh frequencies, pitching it around a little bit to create a melody, and you end up with compared to. Now, I think with the processing, both sound a lot better, the robotic one as well. But still, if I compare it to the one with Remnant, I mean, Remnant wins, in my opinion, every day of the week. Now, in context. Now, without the lead. Sounds cool. But with. That sounds amazing. All right, on to plugin number 2, which is Crystallizer. Now, Crystallizer is again one of those go-to plugins for me. I have a project open here, which is, as I'm recording this right now, my latest release called Devil in Disguise. So go stream that, please. And we have this splice keys loop here, which originally sounds like this. Well, very cool. So I use that. Now, I've got this lower octave here. So one of the first things I always do to create some variation is go up the octave. I did that here. Which is cool, but it's not all that, I want to add some extra spice. So in comes Crystallizer. Crystallizer is again a granular echo synthesizer, and the knobs kind of speak for itself, so I'm not gonna go in too deep. They have a bunch of presets which are really cool, but this time I just started to mess around with the default settings. Let's hear how it sounds with it on. Sounds cool, a little bit messy. Crystallizer has, in my opinion, a really recognizable sound. And sometimes when I hear a song, I'm like, oh yeah, that producer, they use Crystallizer. And it takes a little bit away for me personally when I listen to a song. I think 99% of the listeners won't have that, but for me it does. So when I use it myself, I try to steer away from that feeling. So what I usually do is either resample it and use like little bits and pieces of it, or automate certain parameters to add that little bit of sauce, but not have it sound overly crystallized. So in this case, what I did, as you can see here, I automated it on and off every second measure, which then sounds like this. So it just comes in and out every second measure, which just gives a whole new side to the keys loop. Now, it doesn't just sound like, oh, it's that lower octave pitched up. And in context, that sounds like this. And then in the build-up, I layer both of them. And then on the lower octave, I also automate the on and off button of the Crystallizer plugin. So without Crystallizer on it, it would sound like this. Cool. But then with Crystallizer, yeah, really cool in my opinion. And then finally, in the second build-up of the song, I added a fully crystallized layer, which sounds like this. I added some reverb as well, and I EQ'd it, and I panned it slightly so it's more of an atmospheric background layer to support both the lower octave and the higher octave. And then altogether, that sounds like this. Then if I take away that crystallized layer, You know, it's just to give some extra variation towards the end of the song, just before the second drop. Now, in context, that sounds like this. Now, if I take away that crystallized layer, like I said, it just really fills up the spectrum. It's a nice, thick, atmospheric layer at the bottom.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
And yeah, it's just the perfect little piece of variation and excitement towards the second drop. Cool. Let's move on to plugin number 3. This is my song Run and Hide, which I've released on 7 Clouds, which is out everywhere on all the streaming platforms. So yeah, go check that out. Now, plugin number 3 is Portal. And Portal is again, granular effects plugin. I think we're starting to see a little bit of a theme here. I guess I really like granular synthesis. What can I say? Now, here, I put it straight onto the master, went through a bunch of plugins. I haven't been using Portal long enough to really understand their grain controls and all the different modulators, and you can link them as well, the same way you would link an LFO in Serum. But yeah, usually I just go through the presets, twist these X and Y knobs, dry wet, and yeah, try and come up with something cool. Here, it sounds like this. Now that preset sounds like this. And I just resampled every different group except for the bass. And again, what I did was automated. So I automated the master dry wet here from Portal. And one of the things I hope you can take away from this is whenever you use these effects plugins, usually just throwing them on and leaving them at 100% all the way through isn't gonna work. It's just gonna be an overload of the effect. It's gonna be way too much. And automating things and modulating things, that's really where the magic happens, in my opinion. Yeah, that's my final favorite effects plugin for now. That brings us to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. Like I said, well, my song Devil in Disguise, the song Run and Hide, those are both out. Go stream it. Yeah, if you have any other plugins, whether it be VSTs or effects plugins you use that are your go-to or that you've recently discovered, leave them down in the comments. I'll check them out, and I'm most likely gonna do a part 2, and maybe I'll include them in that. That's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next one.
You're the devil in disguise.